Hello, and welcome to the Peter Principles. I am Peter, your host. Today we have another episode of our ongoing feature, 10 Questions with the Musical Mind. Our guest today is insanely talented bassist Marten Andersson, joining us via phone from California to discuss his recent charity event and some other stories from his life in music. Hope you enjoy. So everything going good?
Yeah, everything's great, man. Everything is just trying to calm things down a little bit. It's just been a little stressful over the last couple of weeks here, so I'm just trying to sort of slow things down a little bit.
No, I don't blame you one bit. The question, but from classical rock, I mean, I've seen some of the videos. It looks great. I mean, you had some major star power up there. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that and, you know, what charity it benefits, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually started, holy shit, I think I just threw something on the ground here. Sorry, I'm in the studio, there's so much stuff and it's kind of dark in here. It started a couple years ago. I'm friends with these great classical musicians, this Chinese violinist named Yuton, and this great cellist, Stan Sharp, who's played with L.A. Phil, and he played with a million people. And we found out that some of the schooling, they had cut down on funding for some of the schools for music and art and PE.
Right.
And we're like, holy crap, we found out that a bunch of schools, the music lessons were actually paid for by the donations from parents and so forth. So, which is like, that's pretty crappy,
Yeah.
Like, it's so important in music and art and everything else. And, there's a million studies that has shown that obviously if you do music, you improve so much in math and all kinds of subjects,
No, you're exactly right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, they were like, holy shit, we should just do a concert. So I'm like, well, why don't we do that? And then I start making some calls, and they made some calls, and we ended up having, Stone Temple Pilots playing this little benefit that we decided to put on. And it was Chester Bennington on vocals, and
right.
And it actually ended up being the last concert that he did with the Stone Temple Pilots.
Right. Now, I didn't realize that was his last concert. Okay.
Yeah, that was his last official concert with them, so that's kind of special in its own way a little bit. But
sure.
And we really didn't know what we were doing, to be honest with you, but we just knew that, hey, well, let's put together this fundraiser and let's make some money. And if anything, we ended up making $50,000, which is not a ton of money because, we had a little after party after, and, for everybody invited to the show and this and that. But what they were super happy about is actually we brought a lot of awareness which I had no clue about, that, physical PE and music and art and all this stuff was not, it was paid for by volunteer, parents and things, and many schools, and the budgets from the states are so freaking small for music and art, and that a lot of schools don't even have those kind of activities or programs. So
right, and
anyway,
that's terrible.
Long story shorter, we ended up bringing a lot of awareness to that fact, and they actually said that at the time we worked with the Peninsula Education Foundation, which supports I forget, like 30 different schools or something like that. They actually do their thing, and they give out to all these different schools. And the donations were like super high that year. There was a lot of people. We brought a lot of attention to the cost, I guess you could say. So all in all, it was a great thing, for that purpose. But for us, we were like, hey, I think we're on to something here. Let's just, let's see what we can do. Man, we got these classical musicians, got these rock guys, and so we kind of kept working on it. And this year, we teamed up with an amazing school called OCMD, Orange County Music and Dance School, which it's non-profit school. They don't charge anybody for any kids for lessons.
Really?
So if you're low income or minorities, matter of fact, they're looking for those type of kids that, you have to meet certain standards. They can, a little bit, but they're amazing. There's no charge, and they say, hey, do you guys want to do a concert? Pretty much the same. And we're like, well, let's do it, but let's step it up a notch. Let's get all the students. So we ended up doing a student orchestra. It was like 40, 50 kids orchestra and a student choir and everything else together. All these, other famous rock musicians and classical musicians and everything, and ended up being this like huge thing. So we're definitely on to something here. I feel, when you get the kids involved, you sort of get the parents involved, and you're all doing it for a great cause. And like I said, Nancy Wilson from Heart came down, and she's so super gracious, and she didn't charge us anything. And Randy Jackson from American Idol, and not to name drop or anything, but just the reason I'm doing that is because they just kind of sort of, wow, this is a great school. I don't mind donating my time and talent to do this, and that's the reason I'm saying that, because they were so courteous and so helpful as far as doing this for free and so forth.
No, it's a great cause. I mean, as far as the money you raised, I mean, I would think if each school in that area got just one new violin or cello or something, or upright bass or a snare drum, that's something that some kid can learn on. And to be really proficient in an instrument, you really need to start off young. So I think that's a great cause. I mean, it's just getting them their hands on actual viable instruments that they can learn on, and it's that 1 of 1,000 that has that spark, and they're 30 years later they're the next great musician. So it's really a neat cause.
Absolutely, and there's so many kids that, number one, they don't even know that they have this talent, and especially this day, a lot of instrument sales are down and so forth. That's kind of unfortunate. So every little thing helps. But also, if you look at it from a broader standpoint, look at this, how many Michael Jordans aren't they in downtown, inner city Chicago, but they never get the opportunity to end up with drugs or, crime or whatever. And I feel that's kind of a similar situation in some ways. It's like, let's make sure some of these kids that really, really talented kids gets the chance, or if anything,
absolutely,
just stay off the street. So,
and that's true of any field. You're right. Music, athletics, or academics. It's the kid has to have the chance, because you don't know where that diamond in the rough is, and you really have to give them the platform to spring from. And because there's no telling how many talented people have never really found their muse over the years, because they just never had a chance to express themselves. But
and they might not even know about it yet at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It's a very interesting, thought process. But anyway, so I think we started off with a really good thing, and we're just going to keep going. Just taking a minute here after we got done with this, and it was really hard to play on everything and co-produce it at the same time. So it was a little tough. So we'll see how I'm going to do it in the future. Maybe I'll just play some of the stuff, as far as making in that,
you're wearing a lot of hats in that kind of situation. Yeah. Now, will there be a professional video of that released, or?
Well, we did record everything. It's a little tricky because it comes to ownership of songs and so forth.
Sure.
There's a lot of other legalities of, and especially when you have, the Nancy Wilsons of the world involved, which is being gracious, but, you never know. There's a lot of lawyer stuff in the back end, probably could be potentially. So we will release some of our stuff, because we wrote some original music for this, and we had Nathan Wang actually came in. That was his contribution. He actually wrote a theme song for us. Nathan is a big film composer. They do a lot of Jackie Chan stuff. A lot of stuff in Hollywood, and he actually came in and he wrote us specifically a theme song for it.
Very cool.
So some of that stuff we did like this 10-minute classical medley, which is just insane, and that we wrote and put together, and those type of things will be out. But it's hard to say if, can we put out heart songs, because we did some heart songs, and we did some with Johnny Resnick, we did some Goo Goo Doll stuff and everything else. But when there's major labels involved and ownership and different owners of songs and
Right.
everything else.
Yeah, it's not the musicians, it's the label and the management and the lawyers, right? That's the entangling alliances that makes it so hard.
Yeah, publishing companies and all
Sure.
kinds of stuff. So I would love to say, yeah, absolutely, it's going to be. But I also know the back end of everything. Everybody's got to be in there and get their pie and get their saying into
Sure.
everything. So we'll see what happens. But there will definitely be some sort of stuff out there.
Well, cool. We look forward to it. Now, at the end of this, if you have it, you can even just send me a link later on. The schools or some kind of the charity organization, if there's still a way people can donate or something, I'd be happy to put that up on my site.
Absolutely. You can actually just go to fromclassicaltorock.com, and there's a donation button there that goes straight
Perfect.
to the school.
Perfect.
So it's all pretty much anything you can find is from classicaltorock.com.
Great. I'll share that on my site too. That's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. I guess let's go back a little bit because your story is kind of interesting. One of the big things I think is a lot of kids, especially in America, it's a bold move anyway. But you're growing up, you get into music, or say you want to be an actor or musician, doesn't matter what. But they'll pack up when they're young and move to LA, or these days maybe Nashville, and they're gonna try to make it in the music business. But you made a bold move when you were barely an adult, because you didn't just move you moved to another continent. I mean, you came from Sweden to the United States. That's big. That's a big move. Did you have a set plan in place, or did you have any contacts already over here, or was it Martin with a suitcase?
No. It was Marten Andersson being a complete idiot, and it's just impulsive fool in some ways. Like,
Sure.
hey, it sounds like a good idea. Let's go to LA and get murdered.
Right.
No, but it's like no, but there's somewhat of a plan to it. I had sent the tape to a guy named Mike Varney. He works.
Oh, did you? That's funny. I was just going to bring up the whole like Yngwie Mike Varney connection, that kind of thing, but I didn't know that.
I had seen Yngwie actually in Guitar Player magazine. This is Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records. He had a column in there called God, I can't remember the name of it. I'm losing my mind these days. But yeah, he had a column in Guitar Player magazine, and I had sent in a tape to him, and I did not make the column. But, however, he had put me in touch with a girl that was signed to his label called Phantom Blue. They were an all-female band.
Yeah, I remember them.
To Shrapnel. Yeah, and then they got signed to Geffen eventually. And she actually started writing me, believe it or not. And I was only like 16 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And 16, 17, something like that. And she wrote me, and we kind of pen pal back and forth. And I've told this story so many times, but I'll tell it one more time. I actually missed my bus going back to my mom's house, and it was a freaking cold winter storm night. It was like 2 a.m, and I missed the bus. And at that time, I tried to look cool no matter what, Converse and, jeans and leather jacket, very minimum stuff. I didn't want like a big, fluffy jacket. I'm trying to look cool, whatever. But so I missed the bus at 2:10 by like a minute. I saw it driving off, and I had to wait there for an hour for the next bus. And it's pretty much at that point where I'm going, you know what? California sounds pretty damn cool right now, with all the palm trees and everything. And at that moment, I decided I'm going to go. My mom wouldn't let me until I, turned 18. But
Right.
So I actually left pretty much right after.
Isn't it funny what a small thing can? I mean, I'm sure it was already forming in your mind, but what a small thing can flip the switch and spur you into action. That's But talk about the Mike Varney thing and Phantom Blue. I think you and I are about the same age. I'm 46. How old are you?
A couple of years younger than that, but yeah, pretty much.
But same period. And talk about as far as the Mike Varney stuff, and we were definitely seeing the same type of stuff and probably listening to a lot of the same things. But I'm going to my next question. What made you pick out the bass as opposed to other instruments? Did you start off on something different, or piano or guitar or whatever, or you just enjoy the bass more?
Yeah. I actually started playing guitar when I was like 12 for like a minute, and then again I told the story so many times, so people that read this or tune in or whatever, they go, oh my God, here goes the same story again.
Yeah, well, you can blame that on me.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I actually started listening to Kiss, and I saw Gene Simmons, spitting blood and flying, and like the demon. I was like, that is so freaking cool. That's what I want to do.
Right.
So it was a little bit of that. I don't know. At that 12 years old, you're
sure
impressible. Just a Superman hero kind of attitude. It's like, and that's sort of what I saw. I think in Gene at the time, I was like, man, I really want to be. I want to play bass. So
definitely.
Trading my guitar in for bass, and that's sort of how it started. And
I mean, I just remember seeing even the cover of Destroyer. Like, I wanted to be Kiss. Just
oh my God! I mean, Alive 1, Alive 2. I mean, one of the great records.
Absolutely. Well, and actually, on one of your solo albums, Legacy, I think didn't you play some rhythm guitar yourself on that?
Yeah. I still write songs on guitar and stuff, so we do a lot of like placement kind of stuff and everything. So I song ideas on guitar, but I'm not a shredder at all in any shape or form. But I never tried to be. I just, when you start realizing how hard it is to write a freaking hit song,
right. But actually, that's pretty interesting because I like to get in behind the small trivial facts of people's creativity. So I've wondered that before, like when you're writing a song, say you come up with a piece on yourself to bring to the band or whatever, whoever it is, would you write that predominantly just get the chord changes and the key changes on the bass, or would you sit down and map out the chords on guitar? I've always wondered how that's presented to other band members.
It's actually very interesting. Well, nowadays everybody got Pro Tools, and
sure.
Sometimes I just put it down on whatever the idea that I have. But a lot of times I write it on guitar, and a lot of times I write it on bass, and it's just there's no set pattern to it. And one interesting thing doing this from classical to rock thing is that you have these amazing musicians that sight read like crazy.
Right.
And I don't read music all that well, so it's very interesting that I write stuff that necessarily might not be right as far as a musical standpoint. Like, hey, you can't mix those two notes together. Well, it's just dead,
Right.
So so in some ways, I feel like it's almost worse in my favor in some weird, twisted little ways that I can do it that way. But,
well, I think actually in that case, tablature actually works better for guitar and bass, because with modern music, and especially rock and metal, like the standard, treble clef and all that doesn't account for things like, pick scrapes and whatever. Just, I just think tablature works better for rock music as far as the guitar and bass. I mean, it's just the traditional clef is not set up for that. It's just as far as like notations of what you're specifically doing. So like it's like trying to learn Joe Satriani off a Mel Bay book. I mean, you're not going to really get the, what he's actually doing.
True, maybe, yeah, I'll take your word for that one. But yeah, I mean, look at guys like Billy Sheehan who have no freaking clue what he's doing as far as musically wise, in theory. But he's doing all right.
Oh yeah, actually, I was going to ask you about that. Since when you were coming up. When you learned bass, how was the progression? Like, did you kind of learn the basics and then get into, because you've got a phenomenal technique and a lot of, both hands on the fretboard and that kind of thing. Did you start off interested in that, and who inspired you to kind of start learning the advanced techniques? I mean, were you aware of Billy Sheehan or people like Stanley Jordan when you were younger, or how did that come into it?
I think it just goes through phases in life, and it's interesting with anything. Like, I used to read a lot of books, and you can read one sentence in a book and it can completely change your life in some ways, in your particular life, which is kind of interesting. And I feel the same thing with music. I grew up on a lot of the English, the British heavy metal, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Michael Schenker, big Michael Schenker fan when I grew up. I loved it. And a lot of people don't know this. He had this bass player called Chris Glenn, which is a great bass player. He played on bass on all the early Schenker stuff. Mm-hmm. And, so I would listen to that. And then, of course, Yngwie came out, and I was like, holy crap, what is this? How can anybody play this stuff, And so then you go, oh, man, I got to look into this. And then you start looking into a bunch of other bands and so it's especially in my Barney catalog. I think I had 2 or 3 years there where I was just like dug into everything that he sort of came out with, and
Right.
And then I got into a little classical phase for a while there too. So there's not a clear cut band as such. It's just all different as you grow and as you go. Okay, well, I'm kind of done with this phase right now. And,
Sure. No, it's interesting because I know I'm a terrible guitar player, but I went through my phases where, and I think it helps you in life in general. Like I went through I'm going to check out Andre Segovia for some classical and, Django Reinhardt, and you have to learn like the roots and origins of stuff. Like you don't want to just go through life listening to Yngwie. Like you kind of want to learn like what came before that, what came after that, and who inspired who, and that really helps you grow as a musician, I think. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had heard a little bit of that because I was really into the early Scorpions and stuff, and I know Uli Roth kind of touched on that on these solo records,
right,
a little bit, similarly kind of vibe a little bit, and but of course, Yngwie came out, and there was a huge thing in Sweden being Swedish and everything. So
sure, I bet.
But at the same time, I could listen to. My parents would listen to ABBA, so you can listen to all those melodies and stuff, and you go, "Holy crap, that is a really good melody." And of course, at the time, I was like super anti that kind of music because you've grown up being a metalhead, But at the same time, now you realize how much those melodies kind of stuck with you and how good they were.
No, you're completely right. Like you just learn to appreciate. Like it's talent. Talent's talent. It doesn't matter what the form of music is, and so you get to a point where you can appreciate, regardless of what genre it is, quote unquote. You start like, hey, that's a good song, or that's a good melody. That's good harmonies, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I learned from that was a good song is a good song no matter what kind of style it is.
Right.
So it's but of course to get back to your question, of course, then later on I started taking lessons from a guy named Marcel Jacobs, and some people that know who he is.
I know who he is.
He's my first bass teacher, and for the people who don't know, he played with Yngwie. That was sort of his claim to fame initially, but then he came back. He played with Europe, to the band Europe, and he played with Talisman. He had formed his own band named Talisman, and he also played a lot of the John Norum solo albums and stuff like that in Sweden. So
yeah, John Norm's another monster.
Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah.
And
Marcel was there with the Jeff Scott Soto days with Yngwie.
Yes, you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had left Yngwie for whatever circumstances. He got fired or left or whatever it was. He just came back to Sweden. I think he was kind of in need for money because he started giving lessons and everything. I don't think he cared for it too much, but he did. He came back and he just started giving lessons, and I was one of the lucky. It's pretty brutal in those days. I just I got the number from someone. I just called him up and I said, "Hey, I want to take lessons from you," and I'm not going to take no for an answer. And he kind of just giggled. All right, come on Thursday. This is how much I charge.
That's great. Some kind of blind determination. It's almost like you don't know enough to be intimidated. You just here's what I want.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that kind of until my 18s or 20s or whatever, that's pretty much my motto, actually, because a lot of stuff that I did, I just had no clue. I was just brutal, ruthless kind of guy in a nice way. Stupid, really, actually, but, I'm going to go to L.A., what?
Hey, but it worked, right?
They're all like, yeah, it worked, but it's just like, but I called him up, and he sort of introduced me to a lot of the neoclassical stuff, but as well, what he did, because Callis had opened up for Yngwie in America, and Billy had shown Marcel some of the tapping stuff.
Okay.
So indirectly, he showed me this. So
Funny.
I found out through Billy, through Marcel, actually, which was interesting. And then I was like, well, shit, I got to go back and I pick up all the Tals records and all this stuff. And then, but so the reason I say the tapping that I do and stuff, it's a little bit different than the Billy stuff because I got to talk from a third party. I don't know if this makes any sense. But,
no, it does, absolutely.
Yeah. So so I didn't initially get it from listening to Billy and go, okay, I want to play it like this. And it's just like, hey, you can do it like this. And he showed me his sort of version. If anything, I ripped off Marcel's tappings versions, I suppose you could say, But anyway, so, but of course, and it's funny too because then later on I listened to all of Billy and when Steve and all those guys, David Lee Roth. I mean, that was just amazing. What a show and stuff they put on.
Oh yeah.
And I now these days I'm actually really good friends with Billy, so I feel like that is big accomplishment more than anything actually, because you're going from being this little 14-year-old kid to being like, I got his number in my phone kind of thing,
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I remember being disappointed because I saw Roth on the Skyscraper tour, so Steve Vai was still with him, but by that time Billy had left. I remember being a little bit disappointed because I wanted to see Sheehan, but I did get to see him probably that year or the next year with Mr. Big opening up for Rush. So this would have been back in so I did finally see him live, and I'm guessing it was probably 1990 or 88, 89, something like that. But he's a super cool guy. I mean, I'm trying to think. What's moving on? I wanted to ask you.
I have to tell you a real funny story about that, though.
Oh, definitely.
I never saw him with David Lee Roth. I never saw him with him ever, and I've seen a lot of videos and I watched. Those guys are insane up there. Those two together. And it's interesting because they're completely different backgrounds. Steve coming from
Zappa,
theory type kind of stuff, and Billy not having no clue what the hell he's doing, as far as theory wise.
Right.
And there was such a good mix, But I never saw him live, and a couple years ago, they were doing a sort of a little reunion down at the Ultimate Jam here in Hollywood. They were going to do it, and it was Billy was there. It was the whole original band. And it was Billy and Steve and David and everything. And I actually got in through Billy, and it's this little tiny little club in Hollywood. This maybe 3 years ago, something like that. And there was probably about 6,000 people outside, and I'm not kidding. It was just like the whole Hollywood Boulevard was just jam packed. Anyway, they started letting in a lot of people, and the fire marshal shut it down.
Yeah.
So that was my closest. And I'm sitting there going, I'm this close to seeing him live.
I'd heard that story because everybody was, heard the rumors, and just had to be just devastating. Like what? Like the carpet yanked out from under you. Just especially in a club like that, to see them in a small club, that would be just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I know they're older now and everything else, but it still would have been like this closest to where I've seen them. But anyway, so
yeah, definitely.
Next question.
Okay, so when you've stepped into some pretty established bands, and so whether it be Lizzie Borden or Steelheart or your Stitch with a Lynch Mob, do you try to take into account to follow the original bass lines? Do you wing it and do what Martin wants to do, or do you try to play the middle? You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of the middle. With Lizzie, when I first joined him, I came over here and I was 18, something like that, whatever, and 19 when I joined him, and I hadn't really heard too much of. I mean, I knew about him, but I was very into the Indie and all that stuff at that point, so I wasn't really too, I wasn't too familiar with him. Which in some way is a good thing, because it's the same thing. I walked in there and being kind of just like, okay, well, I want this gig, and not really, I wasn't looking at him as my peer, so to speak, because I really didn't know him. And I don't mean that in a cocky way, but it was, maybe if I would have been a lot more nervous and much more intimidated if I had known the band.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, some of the stuff kept it kind of similar to the record. Some of the stuff, he was very open about that. Just just make it a little bit more modern, just change it around a little bit. And so it's a combination of both. And the same thing sort of applies to both Steelheart and Lynch, I think. It's just, whatever. Lynch, I have to say, it was a little bit of an intimidation factor. Not intimidation, but I remember being 14, listening to all the Dawkins stuff and trying to figure out Mr. Scary in my bedroom.
I was just gonna say, like, of course it's intimidating. You're meeting Mr. Scary, right?
Yeah, so that was a little bit, because I was trying to figure that song out and everything, and so there was a little bit of that. But he was a super cool guy, and we ended up being like, great friends to this day. I mean, I just played with him at NAMM this last year, and with him and Don Dawkins and stuff. So it was cool. And,
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was cool, but there was a little that it wasn't so much intimidation. It was more of like the wow factor. Like,
sure.
If you'd have looked at it from above, I was still that 14-year-old kid just
right.
trying to figure out Mr. Scary in my bedroom.
Jeff Pilson's a super talented guy.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but
super great singer too, and everything else, and a songwriter. And I mean, from what I heard back in the Dawkins days, those were pretty much, they rehearsed everything and wrote a lot of the songs and yada yada yada. So it's just, Don didn't even show up until a lot of finished products, and sometimes. So I heard. I don't know if that's true or not. But,
right. Actually, I'm going to go off on a random tangent here, and I'm sure you noticed this. One thing that's always struck me is cool about George is a lot of his bends and vibrato, which you think it is, he's not bending the string, he's sliding up a half or a full step rapidly. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
That's odd. Not many guitar players do that. It's almost like a fretless bass technique. He'll just slide it, up and down instead of bending it. But it's weird. It's a cool sound, but I don't see many guitar players do that.
Yeah, those guys are very interesting, man. It's just like they're looking for the holy grail of sound or something. I mean, like, they're never really happy with the sound, and they always want to try new things, and they're very interesting in that way. But yeah, I mean, it's just. I've seen Yngwie grab a guitar from off the shelf in a music store in Sweden and plug it into a little Fender, and it sounds exactly like him. It's just all in the fingers.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah.
So it's just, and the same with George. There's moments when I'll be playing with him, and you're just you're still playing, but you're kind of almost going, well, that is incredible. Like, how, you know what I mean? Like, you almost have to, like, holy shit. That's so freaking cool,
Oh, yeah, he definitely, I mean, he's definitely got, he kind of throws in those kind of diminished notes and gets that kind of exotic sound to his scale. So he always had a different sound to me. I always liked him a lot. But I actually didn't get into him until I was aware of Dokken throughout the 80s, but probably wasn't until I bought Back to the Attack, which of course was kind of the end of the first phase of their heyday, and then I went back and bought the other albums, which I kind of came in on the tail end of that. But
yeah, me too. I mean, and the first Lynch Mob album I think is absolutely brilliant.
Oh, and Oni Logan is
wicked.
Yeah, Oni Logan's fantastic, and I love Robert Mason on the second album. But and the funny thing about them is I almost think, and this is sacrilegious, but I almost think the last couple albums that George and Oni did were at least as good as the first couple Lynch Mob albums. I don't know. It's almost like they got better as a team. I don't know, but
yeah, I heard some of it, but yeah, I kind of heard some of that too, and I know that was sort of falling out. And,
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens, but well, I hope they can get it back together in some ways and figure it out.
Who knows? Speaking of you guys, like, you spent a long time with Lizzie. Do you think there's another possibility of, like, Starwood, or is Lizzie back to basically doing Lizzie Borden, or?
Well, it's been an interesting sort of journey with that whole thing, because we actually recorded Starwood, a second record. Starwood was, for the people who don't know, sort of a lighter version of Lizzie Borden, I guess, more rock and roll. And it was just fun, kind of a party, rock and roll that we did. And then we went back and did Lizzie Borden, and basically what he's doing right now, he's actually doing a solo album. So this latest album that he has is a solo album. I mean, I think he's playing most of it himself, and it's not sort of Lizzie Borden, the band, that's at the last lineup that we had been. So, and I know that he took about 3 or 4 songs from that latest Starwood record, and we then sort of put them on this solo album that he's doing.
Yeah.
So which is kind of a bummer actually, and in some ways because we were very much looking forward to actually release that at some point, and maybe we still will in some fashion. But since he took
you got to come up with 3 more songs.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. So that's a hard question, but that's something that's to be aware of at least. But
I'm basically asking you to predict the future, so it's not really a fair question.
Yeah, exactly. So all I know is 4 of those songs is on that latest Lizzie Borden solo record, and that's pretty much all I know at this point. So.
Gotcha. Oh, another thing I want to ask you about. I read up a little bit on you and cheated because I was not aware of this. You wrote a book a while back on making label contact. What inspired you to do that? And does it hold up today? Is it different nowadays, or did you have a particular hard time in your life? Or
it's definitely dated, but basically, I'm like this crazy guy that is just like I always got to do something, right? I mean, it's just one of those things is also almost like a OCD thing or something, or I don't know what you want to call it, but it's like, what can I do now? So I thought back and I was like, when I grew up in Sweden, I was like, there was a lot of cool bands, they had a lot of cool songs and everything, but nobody really knew how to go about it to get a record deal. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I did. I just started writing one day, and it just sort of came together, and it sold out on all the copies and everything. It was a good, very attractive piece at the time because I wish I had a book like that when I was 14. Or the same thing I said about the OCMD school. What's most brilliant about this school? And I said, well, I wish I had something like this when I grew up, which I kind of did. But
right,
a lot of kids don't have it. So Sweden, they have a lot of after-school programs and things like that, so they can, they kind of facilitate a lot of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, can you imagine like if they had the internet when you and I were young teens learning an instrument? I mean, like just YouTube and stuff where you could just see how everything's played. I mean, I played Fly By Night by Rush wrong for 15 years before I was like, oh, it's this chord, but.
It's different times, that's for sure. But so it's basically it was just a little phase I went through, and I was just like, hey, so I came up with an idea, and I just sort of went for it, and just gone and dated, but it was a good little phase, and
sure.
So yeah.
If it helped one guy, maybe somebody out there read it and has a contract now that you may never even be aware of. They might not even remember where they read the book, but maybe it helped them. So that's worthwhile.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Totally. So whatever I could do to help and give back, and that sounds kind of tacky. And it's like, oh yeah, everybody says the same story, but it's like, no, there's something to that.
No, there is. There's a truth to that.
Help me out, and I feel a certain. Both privilege and honor, or whatever you want to call it, to sort of, give back a little bit. It makes me feel better. I'm not saying anybody else have to do it, So it's just like, I don't have a ton of money to give to things, and, so it's like, hey, whatever I can do to help. And, we had a great girl named Jasmine Starr, guitar player. She's a prodigy of the OCMD school. She was 14 years old, and she joined us at the concert. And she's like, I will never forget this as long as I live. And then, who knows? Maybe she'll be the new Bonnie Raitt. Who knows? But, it's just like incredible. And you never really know. And whatever I can do to help just one person, it sounds kind of, lame to keep saying things like that. But
no.
Everybody says this, but,
I tell you what it is Martin, we're getting old and sentimental. That's what it is.
Yeah, whatever, leave something behind, make you feel good.
Sure.
Not feel like a total ass,
Right.
I don't know.
No, I think it's a very worthwhile. It's a totally legitimate sentiment. I think it's great. It really is about like I'm being corny now. It's about leaving the world a little bit better than you got it, and passing things on and helping other people. There's truth to that. It's universal. But
yeah, I mean, it's just, why not, right?
sure.
Why make it more miserable, But yeah, you're right. So it's all good, man. It's all
Cool.
good track. And it's kind of one of those energy you put on the universe and karma and everything else, and some small little level that maybe does work. You help out a little bit, and you get a little bit back.
The thing is, if there's no truth to that, it still doesn't hurt you to do it. So, I swear I've seen you play with a pick before. Do you always use your fingers, or do you use a pick sometimes?
I do both, actually, and I actually used to be more of a pick player than fingers, actually, believe it or not, because I grew up with a lot of the, Chris Glenn from Schenker and stuff. Those guys all use Roger Glover from Deep Purple and stuff. Those guys used to pick a lot.
Right.
And so I was a very big pick player, actually, but I would say it's about 50-50 now. Some of the Steelheart stuff calls for, Only Die Young and stuff like that. It's
right.
also written, the great Kenny Kanowski, rest in peace, a great guitar player too. He wrote a lot of that stuff on guitar, so it's definitely not written, And I did a little Ronnie James Dio Foundation. I played on a couple of songs this last Sunday, and it just reminded me of, we got one song I was doing with Ricky from the Black Star Riders singing, and Ira Black on guitar. It was Ace of Spades with Motorhead.
Yeah.
And it actually took me like a couple hours, because everybody just thinks it's a simple song, right? But that riff in the beginning, it's like a rhythm guitar kind of thing.
Well, Lemmy plays bass. Lemmy plays bass like rhythm guitar. He's not a traditional bass player, or he wasn't. It's a. You're exactly right. He played bass almost like a guitar. It's.
Exactly, and it wasn't that it was a hard thing. It was just that it was just a little different mind frame that I had been in lately, I guess. So I actually went through that, the opening riff for like a half an hour before.
What can we expect from Marten Andersson next? Anything new on the horizon? More with the current, or?
I'm rocking pretty steady with Steelheart now. So it's
right.
The last couple of years I've been with Steelheart, and there's a new album that came out at the end of last year, pretty much. And in some parts of the world, it's actually not out yet. So we're going to tour and support that. And next show, actually, in a couple of weeks, I'm getting ready to head off to Sweden to play the Sweden Rock with Judas Priest and Ozzy and Iron Maiden. So that's a pretty amazing bill right there.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, we go on right before Priest, too. So that's going to be freaking awesome.
And their new album is killer, too. It's...
Oh yeah, they're so good, and so that's what's next with Steelheart. We have a bunch of other shows, so keep checking my websites and everything else, and I'll post all the dates and everything. And so there was definitely we were just in South Korea with Steelheart, which they're humongous over there, which is really interesting. Millie is a huge celebrity over there, and
right.
Song She's Gone that he wrote, it's like been the #1 karaoke song for the last 10 years over there.
Cool. Hey, well, it's been a pleasure, Martin. I really enjoyed it, and by all means, if you get anything else coming through the pipeline that I need to be aware of, I can help promote for you. You just let me know.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and like I said, keep in touch, and I'd love to come on again, so it's all good, though.
We'll do it. We'll plan on it. Thanks again.
All right. Sounds good, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
See you, man. Good night.
And once again, I'd like to thank Martin for joining us on this edition of the Peter Principles. Once again, that link to his charity benefit is from classicaltorock.com. You can also check us out at peters-principles.com for lots of exclusive interviews and articles. Hope to see you soon.